Welcome to the show, everyone. It's the Crypto Lark. Today, I've got with me the guys from Origin Trail. So I've got Giga, Branimir, and Tomaj over there on the right. Guys, welcome.
Thank you very much for having us.
Now, for anybody who hasn't heard about Origin Trail yet, what are you guys doing?
So Origin Trail is on a mission to increase transparency in the supply chain. Now, there are various problems when you try to connect the data in the supply chains. So what Origin Trail does in a nutshell is it enables seamless exchange of data between businesses in the supply chain in a secure way, and of course with integrity, as it is based on blockchain. So this is the shortest explanation. And I guess now we can go forward with the problem.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, why do we need blockchain? What's the problem you're trying to solve? What are the inefficiencies that currently exist that you're trying to take care of?
Yeah, sure. There's quite a few. So as you know, like supply chains today are getting very, very complex with the globalization, and so we have trade going on up and down, and it's really very rarely a chain. It's becoming a network. So you have a lot of interconnections happening between businesses, and it creates a lot of opacity. So in order to achieve more transparency and end-to-end visibility, we have to tackle three, or at least three subset of problems. Let's say it like that. The first one is really how to connect these businesses together. So we have these silos appearing at all points. There's a lot of fragmentation of the data, and what we need to do is enable that different businesses to speak the same language, to speak amongst each other. So we're talking about data interoperability and really enabling that. And so this is one subset, how to connect those different players. And then the second subset is really how to create an environment in where they feel at ease to share data. How can we incentivize them to share? How can we motivate them to share more data? But today we have a situation where it's always a single entity that's kind of accumulating this data, and they always appropriate more value out of these use cases that they do than all the rest of the actors. So that's why decentralization is so crucial, because it brings that neutrality, that you have different businesses with different ERP systems, different backbones, IT backbones that they use, and they're still willing and able to cooperate amongst each other and share data effectively. So that's why scalable decentralization is really important. And then the third layer is really how to enable them to share data that might be sensitive to their business, to their competitive advantage. So what you want to do is really enable them to make certain consensus checks that provide integrity and objectivity of the data, but at the same time not reveal what is maybe a crucial asset or a crucial business confidential information for them. So it kind of goes to these three subsets: one, data interoperability; scalable decentralization; and really how to manage privacy layers of the data sets that are being put on a protocol.
Very cool. And I guess that kind of comes into my next question, maybe a little bit anyway, is what is going to be going on the blockchain and what is going to be going off the blockchain? So where is what data going to go and why?
Yeah, so perfectly. So essentially, when it comes to the data, there's quite a lot of information around supply chain events going on in all these chains, and essentially this provides a huge amount of load, which cannot be handled by the blockchain itself. Blockchain is well, we all know, has its problems with scalability, but it's also not designed to be a place where you would just unload a lot of data. It is really a trust machine. So in that sense, it is important to utilize it in the way that it's made for. Ideally, and what we're utilizing blockchain for is to actually fingerprint the data that we have off-chain onto the network. So in that sense, we can have an arbitrary data size on our own network by having a fingerprint that is always verifiable on a blockchain. You can always check that the certain data matches with the fingerprint. So in that sense, a very small extract of this data goes on the blockchain and then is used using smart contracts to actually validate that this data is okay with something that is stored off-chain on a node of Origin Trail. And essentially, when it comes to this, you can offload a lot of trust onto the chain while keeping a lot of the functionality off-chain on a still decentralized network, which provides the proper incentives needed for a system.
And what about consumer data protection? So say that, you know, I'm out buying things and all that data gets registered somewhere. I mean, what happens then? Does that stay private? Do I own that data? Does Origin Trail own that data and sell it on to a third party?
Yeah, so there's a very heated debate, especially here at European Union, since the GDPR regulation is coming into force very soon. And blockchain as a solution, which kind of brings in the immutability and kind of the eternalizes the data once it's being recorded, is in a bit of a pickle because of that feature. So what Origin Trail as a protocol, as a middleware between blockchain and between a supply chain application brings in is this immutability, which is off-chain. It enables, it brings in we can still fight the possibility of collusion between actors in a supply chain, but still the data is not kind of eternalized. It can be erased. And what is great about it, each actor in the supply chain, and even consumers, if we take a consumer as one unit in a supply chain, and consumers are a unit of supply chain, they can gain ownership over the data. They can arbitrarily select which data to share, and they can also arbitrarily attach an expiry date to the data sets they share. And that's very much important, because we saw what happened with Facebook, we saw what happened with the other platforms, and consumers are being rightfully concerned about it. And this is also one of very much important features we have at blockchain at Origin Trail protocol.
Also fits into scalability kind of debate, because you don't need to save it forever. So if you have a perishable product that you need the data set to be there for 6 months, you know, eternity minus 6 months is an overkill. So you would keep it for 6 months, and then it can not be there anymore. You don't need to pay for it or compensate the nodes to keep it.
That's right. I mean, they don't need to look back in 100 years and see what happened to an order of tomatoes, right? It's not going to be necessary information for anybody. Okay, great. Now, you're going to be starting on the Ethereum blockchain, but you're going to be moving into other blockchains in the future? So you'll be compatible with Neo or Stellar or any other blockchains?
Yeah, so we're architecturing the system in such a way where you can, because you're only keeping fingerprints of data on the blockchain and using smart contracts for certain validation of this data, whatever blockchain offers these functionalities will be suitable. So in that sense, we have created a system in such a way that we can, as we're starting on Ethereum, onboard different blockchains as we go in the future. So it's the idea is not to be tied to one certain system, as you know, it can also be. We can also see benefits in other new blockchains popping up and having good features, but also in terms of, you know, this being a very kind of a young industry. We're still seeing a lot of innovation, so it's really gonna be a different story in 2-3 years from now compared to today. So that's kind of the angle.
You have to be flexible, because you never know what's going to be coming around the corner as far as new blockchain technology, or the old blockchain that you build on might, of course, have problems in it too. You just never know. But I want to know about. Go ahead.
It's linked to supply chain transparency. So that's our kind of aim, and this is what we tackle. Anything in terms of technical solutions, we try to be as agnostic as to how much can this serve the vision that we want to kind of put forward. And as long as it checks the boxes that to deliver that value that we need to deliver, then it's something that we can consider. And in that sense, we try to keep our minds open. But for now, Ethereum is definitely by far the most kind of compatible system to build this on.
Excellent. Are you going to have masternodes? you know, I had to ask it, guys.
Yeah, it's well, essentially, it's kind of a buzzword, I'd say. But in that sense, when you look at, we do have nodes. They are incentivized for providing services of the network, and if I would label them with a master or super master or whatever in front, it doesn't really make a big difference. They need to do what the system needs them to perform, which is perform the data imports, exchange of data, replication, fingerprinting of it, and computing the consensus checks in a way. So in that sense, it's also a little different, because we're not building a blockchain, so it doesn't require that type of a consensus that usually delegated proof of stake fits pretty well, as masternodes are part of delegated proof of stake. For us, it's a little different set of problems. So in that sense, our incentivization scheme is a little different. So short answer, it's not a master node per se, but it's a node which negotiates with other nodes on the services in the network, which also involves a certain amount of stake per agreement. So which is kind of flexible. Usually with master nodes, you would put up a certain stake, and that is like a global stake that is used in the system. Within Origin Trail, it's a stake that is in between partners and essentially the agreements that are formed in the network. That's kind of the shortest answer I can give you.
And all decisions are still following what delivers value for the network. And that's our aim. We want to make sure that we can do traceability, we can do transparency in supply chain scalably, in scalable way. And this is what we kind of follow, and all decisions go in that sense. We didn't make a digital asset to kind of make a passive income out of it in that terms. You know, it's not that type of an asset. We created something that can be very useful for real life applications, and so our decisions are always linked to that.
Mm-hmm. And also, decentralization is it's not only a statement from our side. It's something that we need to take care of as we build a system, and that's why this discussion as to how much of a certain token is needed to perform certain action is very much linked to how the decentralization will look like, or if it will be a decentralization. So we need to be careful about it, because decentralization is of the paramount importance for Origin Trail.
Arguably, we would go against that principle.
Yeah, correct.
So then it quickly becomes.
Yeah.
But it goes even deeper when you consider having large companies that might want to use the system with large capital, who would then be able to control a certain master node if it existed. And it gets really complex when you go that way. So the more flattening you get in the system, and the more flexible you make it, actually makes it more bulletproof and decentralized. So there's less risk of getting centralized.
More value long term.
Okay, excellent. And incentivize super master nodes. I love it. It's the new phrase, guys. We're going to use it for all time. Okay, now, what exactly is the function of the token in your ecosystem?
Who wants to have that?
I mean, it connects a lot to what we were just discussing now, and as you can see, the trace is used as a glue within everyone that's a part of Origin Trail ecosystem. On a functional level, we stripped it down from kind of any add-ons, if you want to call them like that, and it performs the functions when you interact with the protocol. So if you want to store data, or you want to write data, you're a data creator, you want to put data onto the protocol, you're going to need the trace to compensate the nodes that are holding that data. And if you want to read from the protocol, and you, again, require a node to perform that functionality for you, you will compensate that node for whatever processing power they use to perform the certain consensus checks and all the rest that falls into that. So any functionality of the protocol that you would like to make use of, you compensate the nodes with traits. But in that sense, it's a way for us to manage the relations between the users and the nodes of the system, in order to create a decentralized way to kind of have the protocol rolling, because there is no central authority that can impose any type of even business model or anything like that on the protocol level. We need a certain way to kind of have that going. And in that sense, it's very similar as to what ETH would be used for gas on Ethereum. In that sense, even though we're not a blockchain. But yeah, I don't know if you guys want to add something. It creates a, and on the other hand, it's a glue within the community. So it's something that brings everything together.
Okay, excellent. I've got a subscriber question here for you. So Bolt Money from Twitter wants to know, how do you compare to the competition? And I guess with so many other blockchain projects kind of operating in a similar space, how do you try to stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, so we saw there are plenty of initiatives. that have similar mission. But that's a very short answer, but I think it summarizes how Origin Trail is positioned in this field of kind of alternative or complementary solutions. So what Origin Trail does, since it's a middleware solution, so we're not delivering end-to-end solutions. We are rather collaborating both with blockchain providers and solution providers who already have their solution built for the supply chains. So in that sense, we are the enabler of the existing solutions. And when we look at the market is still a blue ocean. It's not the red ocean. So I think none of the blockchain projects for supply chains project doesn't have the the direct competition, because it's still the opportunities out there are still plentiful. So, but in our case specifically, when any of the kind of alternative solution provider manages to do something in this field of supply chains, it's great for all of us because it demonstrates the value, and it's going to be like this I think for a long time, because solving the as complex problem as the opacity of supply chain requires a collaborative effort. And if any competitive solution, quote unquote, manages to be successful, that's great for all of us.
I like the attitude. There's so many ways to actually work together instead of working against each other, especially in this really nascent industry. So I like your attitude indeed. I got another subscriber question for you. So Blue Castle from Twitter wants to know the Walmart connection. Is there any Walmart connection? Is there going to be any Walmart connection? I saw you guys got that award, so you can tell us a bit more about that, and then help feed the help feed the internet and their speculations.
Yeah. So just a little bit of a background.
Official partners, guys. Official partners, right here.
I believe that our partner from Shanghai does not mind if we call her out, Matilda. So we've been working in Chinese market for a while now. We've been doing research on Chinese market since March 2017. We've been involved in talks with several retailers there, and of course, Chinese market is huge. And during the course of Hey.
I'll scooch out.
Yeah. We got everyone coming in.
I'll go in the back.
It's coming middle. It's going to be a very short introduction.
Hello.
So today we have a very special visitor here. Matilda is founder and the CEO of both Bits and Bytes. It's a food accelerator that has been supporting us for since half a year, I think. And she's also founder and CEO of Imishiji. Imishiji is an online farmers marketplace operating out of Shanghai. And I mean, I think I'm not exaggerating if I say that she's made out of material to be the next Jack Ma in a couple of years. And,
awesome.
Yeah, so with Imishiji, online retailer, we've conducted a pilot project. And from what I've learned, I think they are the only online retailer, at least in China, that has implemented decentralized solution to track goods. You can also check that project in our Medium post. And one of the great outcomes of that project was that we were admitted into Walmart Food Safety Collaboration Center Innovation Pipeline. We were, I think, out of 12 participants, and more than 100 companies applied. And out of 12 selected companies, we were among 2 non-Chinese teams that were admitted into that program. And even out of those 12 companies, we were selected as 3 winning solutions in Beijing. 3 winning solutions, best solutions that are tackling food safety issues in China. And of course, none of this would have been possible without Matilda's involvement and Matilda's in her team, because the partnership and the pilot project that we conducted in China, it's again a joint effort. So we've been working with Matilda's CTO Alex and the team there with Imishiji. They have their own development team, and they're building their own ERP system. So there was a great kind of a playing ground for Origin Trail to demonstrate what are the capabilities of Origin Trail. And again, coming back to your question, how do we compete or how do we compare to other solutions? In their case, we connected with their development team, and we conducted this project in as a very joint collaborative effort. And of course, that effort didn't go unnoticed by Walmart Food Safety Collaboration Center. It's an inaugural program, and we look forward to see what benefits we can reap out of it in the future. And ever since joining Bits and Bytes and Matilda's team, we've been involved in bringing more transparency to the supply chains. And China, it's a big country. The market is growing rapidly. There's a huge potential for us, and I think also for Imishiji and Bits and Bytes team to kind of bring some great future to the food supply chains.
Awesome.
Perhaps Matilda, just a little bit about Imishiji and Bits and Bytes, just kind of 1 or 2 sentences as to what your mission is, because she's a very inspiring speaker, more than I am.
No, if I can just add on what we just said. Imishiji is an online farmers market that we bring organic, locally grown produce directly from farmers to the Chinese customers. And I would say that the 2 most important initiatives that we're trying to promote is transparency and authenticity. And I think working with Origin Trail by building a use case is really enabling consumers to be able to see where exactly the food comes from and how authentic the data could be to really enable us to tell a safe and clean food story to Chinese consumers. And we're hoping to build more and more user case to be able to let people to understand, and more importantly, to let the consumers to also get more tangible benefit from the food choices that they're making. And Bits and Bytes, we're a food tech accelerator and open innovation platform. So really happy that Origin Trail joined us last year. So we're hoping to be able to bring more and more blockchain-enabled startups that can really promote that transparency for the Chinese food supply chain in the future.
We're gonna post a TED talk from Vancouver when she was in Vancouver last year. We're gonna send it to you. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, for sure. Do send it. I'll put a link down below in the description if anybody else wants to watch that.
Some credence to it, since I mean we have. So I think one of the main differences between us and other projects is that we have tangible results even before we conducted this ICO. We've been working on food transparency since 2011. Basically, we have experience in supply chain, and we have tangible results and real partners.
There you go. There it is, guys. There's the partner right there.
Yeah, I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to steal your spot.
Thank you, Matilda. You see, a lot of people say they have partners, but very few people can say, "Well, here they are."
This is Slovenia.
That's awesome, guys.
Not too much out of the format.
I love it. I love it. Can I follow up on the next question? So you guys were recently at the EU Commission. What were you doing there?
I think it's part 3, right? Right now.
Yeah. I think
so we have another guest.
What's going on here?
Well, you go ahead.
Yeah,
I don't reveal everything.
Yeah, I don't know, because we have a series of little kind of snippets that are going to get published over the next few days that are explaining a little bit more about what we do. But what you can see and what we have in our hands here is Barry, who is not just a regular bear. He's quite cool. So he carries a couple of interesting tags that allow you to do a lot of good stuff from that side. So kind of let's call it, yes, a smart tag in an authenticity perspective. But when you connect that with Origin Trail and this integrity layer below, some new potential value gets unlocked. So yeah, I don't, as to exactly what we were up to in Brussels, I think we'll let you know a little bit more over the next couple of days. So just make sure to follow Twitter, and we'll be revealing a little bit more. I don't want to jump the gun here, otherwise Maya will kill me, and no one wants.
Awesome. Now, you guys are also working with the Trade Alliance. So you got this Trade Alliance set up. Do you want to give us a little more information about that?
Yeah, sure. Trade Alliance is it came out of a necessity, basically. So what we've experienced in the beginning is that giving the potential to create something more scalable on using decentralized technologies really appealed to a lot of different companies. And a lot of, like you saw as well, we made a quarterly report where we kind of let you know what type of companies are interested in kind of utilizing the protocol or trialing it and then playing around with it. And you saw that it's a very, very wide variety of different actors, including different IT providers, software builders, and things like that. And what we saw is that because we have this very heterogeneous group of organizations approaching us, it makes sense to create or try to facilitate a hub that's going to be like a little a group from which the ecosystem grows. And the point of the Trace Alliance is really to bring together these different organizations. At the first stage, those that bring challenges to us is identify the challenge and make sure that using decentralization makes sense in the use case that they propose. Once we have that confirmed, that there actually is a use case for that because we want tangible value, we would then we are able to look between the Trace Alliance members or organizations that are interested and create a group that can work on that challenge. So in that sense, it's like a knowledge hub, it's a collaboration hub. It's just where all these interested parties come together, from integrators, service providers, brands, corporations, and others, that even individuals, developers that might be interested in helping out. And they can all kind of collaborate and work together depending on the type of challenge to deliver new value on the protocol. But at this point as well, they get a lot of support in terms of the releases, the implementation kits, and things like that, some explanation if necessary, in addition to what's posted on GitHub. So we really warmly welcome any company that or, you know, a lot of times we see people that are interested in Trace or in Origin Trail from an individual point of view, but they might be a part of a big supply chain, or they might work in a company that could really utilize Origin Trail. So this community that's building around OT is also a community of ambassadors in terms of adoption. And this is something that we never you know, hoped to dream in the beginning, and now we have this happening, and it's really humbling in a way to have this happening on a global scale. But we are very, very warmly welcome that. So, you know, reach out so we can kind of introduce you in this ecosystem, and we can make something good together.
I love the community, you know, and so many people have asked me about Origin Trail and said, Lark, when you got to talk to the guys from Origin Trail, you got to check out Origin Trail. And I think that's just so telling of, you know, A, what you're building, but also B, the whole cryptocurrency space, you know, people getting super excited about, like, you know, supply chain and logistics, but it is really exciting. This is the thing, you know, it's important where your vegetables come from. Come on, man, most people have no idea where their stuff comes from. And it's really important to give consumers that power, but also to give businesses that power to, of course, you know, help reduce costs, increase transparency, and all this fun stuff. Last question for you guys for today. Where is Origin Trail going? What's the roadmap like for this year? Where are we going to see it in the next 2, 3, 4 years?
Yeah, I know what you want to do technical. And
technically, we have 2 major milestones. So one is launching the testnet, which is about 2 months from now, less than 2 months from now, where essentially we will have all the functionalities built out in the initial version, and the system can be used. Whereas about 3 months later, we are going to launch, after testing out the whole system in the network environment, we're going to launch the mainnet. So the idea is that Q3 we launch the mainnet, and after that we actually utilize the token for the protocol. So in that sense, these are the 2 most important technical dates. In terms of further development, there's going to be a lot of different use cases built on top of the protocol, and we're going to be monitoring both how the protocol is performing in the network performance, but also as to what features are needed protocol-wise to support what use cases are coming out from Trace Alliance and just you know, partners that are utilizing the protocol. So that is kind of from the technical perspective. Maybe you guys want to jump in from the business perspective.
Yeah. I mean, for this year, especially, it's you know, we are learning every day, and we are exposed to new things every day. But we've set out what we want to do in the beginning in terms of a general direction in which we're running. So Origin Trail has to become a global kind of way of exchanging data with integrity. And this is the general aim that we have, and all our actions kind of go there. And then the tactics kind of get the we use different ones just because sometimes you have this great community that are great ambassadors, which you didn't really plan to have, and now you have this resource. So we're trying to kind of see how to make best use of what's happening and the excitement around the space. But generally we are working towards global adoption. So we want to create a very quality network of different companies that can act as integrators, so it's not us working on all the implementations, but rather have companies that understand how the protocol works and just be that layer and help foster the ecosystem growth. So for the next 3 years, we'll be doing that in terms of partnerships and getting integrators to become a part of that, getting corpos or clients for their clients to come on and work together with them to build on top of the protocol. As well as we've laid out also in the ICO, we'll be doing certain incentivization of the use of the protocol, which will start to happen post mainnet more intensively, because that's when it makes the most sense. And then that's going to be the whole other chapter, which we're going to announce later this year, because kind of right now we're really focusing on getting the feedbacks on the current versions. We have 14 days releases. It's pretty insane. So we need to have companies trial the node, try the software, and really get them to have their sight on what value am I creating once the network is launched, and when I can use it in full potential. So it's step by step kind of, but there's a lot of activity planned out to make sure that it gets used, and within the 5-year time span, I think we're well in the kind of touching the mainstream adoption of decentralized technologies. So by that time, focusing on our vision and adapting the protocol from technical side, adapting from the business side, we should be able to kind of deliver that we're one of the for sure key players, or how you broker trust between businesses.
Awesome. Great guys. It's really exciting. It's certainly an interesting project I know a lot of people are excited about. So this is, a lot of great information for people. So I want to thank you guys so much, from me and from the community, for taking the time out of your day to sit down and talk Origin Trail with us. This has been a lot of fun. Big thank you to Matilda as well, and to, the Blue Bear. So guys, thank you so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anytime.